Remember when women everywhere used to cite Mel Gibson as their fantasy male figure? That is, until he was exposed as a drunken anti-Semitic bigot. Even in this day and age, or perhaps especially in this day and age, we are bombarded with racist and bigoted images and statements, and individuals spewing them, some of whom are in our own circle of friends or family.
Go back to China where you belong.
It should therefore be no surprise that these attitudes do not disappear, even if that person becomes famous or celebrity.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
These days, we are well accustomed to a celeb making a horrific comment in an interview or on social media, with the inevitable apology coming after the uproar.
I want to apologize to everybody for the wrong that I've done. I want to learn and grow from this. Inappropriate, hurtful language is totally unacceptable.
Often followed by the even worse explanation of those comments that they were taken out of context or some other excuses. Oftentimes there is a blatant denial, but with this being the high-tech electronic age, we then just show the tweet or roll the tape.
Shut up! 50 years ago they had you upside down with a fucking fork up your ass! You can talk your brain now, motherfucker! Roll his ass out, he's a nigger! He's a nigger! He's a nigger!
Oh my God.
A nigger, look, there's a nigger!
But what about the days before everyone had a camera in their pockets or had a social media account? In this video, we'll examine 5 classic celebrities you may not have realized were or might have been racist. What's not to like about a gruff, penny-pinching landlord who was over 20 years older than his TV wife, who, by the way, had more contempt for him than he had for her? William Frawley was best known for playing Fred Mertz on the iconic sitcom I Love Lucy, as well as Bub on My Three Sons. Say what you will about Frawley, despite having made over 100 pictures before Lucy, he did have 2 things going for him. He had a volatile temper, and he was a raging alcoholic. Oh, and he hated all minorities. So, 3 things. Writer Bob Schiller of I Love Lucy commented that Frawley would fling racial slurs around the set with disturbing frequency, even toward his Cuban-born co-star Desi Arnaz. Schiller refers to Frawley as not politically correct and says he was really a character out of the 1920s. Ironically, by the time Frawley died, Desi Arnaz, who played Cuban bandleader Ricky Ricardo, was considered one of his only friends. As mentioned, Fred Mertz and his TV wife Ethel actually despised each other.
I've never been so hungry.
Vivian Vance, who played Ethel, was actually 2 years younger than Lucille Ball and was contractually obligated to wear frumpy clothing and was made to look older, and she deeply resented being cast as the wife of someone Frawley's age. When the show premiered in 1951, she was 42 and Frawley was 63. According to some reports, things first went sour between the two when Frawley overheard Vance complaining about his age, stating that he should be playing her father instead of her husband. Since that time, the two rarely had a civil encounter between each other. No matter the scene, as soon as the director yelled cut, there was no further interaction between them. Vance didn't speak to him and Frawley didn't speak to her after the run of I Love Lucy. After the show, there was actually talk of a spin-off featuring the Mertzes. Even though Frawley didn't much care for his co-star, he knew this could be a lucrative venture, but Vivian Vance wanted nothing to do with it or him and nixed the idea. After 6 seasons on I Love Lucy, Frawley did spend 5 additional seasons on My Three Sons as Bub until ill health forced him to leave. His last TV appearance reunited him with Lucille Ball in 1965 on Here's Lucy, after Vivian Vance had left that show.
Hello.
Excuse me, are you the owner of this place?
Owners don't carry brooms. I'm a trainer.
Oh, in that case, would you kindly announce to the owner that the Countess André Gaston Armand Jean-Louis Philippe Framboise de Cul-de-Sac has arrived.
Okay. Hey, boss. There's a dame here to see you.
You know, he reminds me of someone I used to know.
William Frawley died of a heart attack at age 79 in 1966. Upon hearing of his passing, Vivian Vance, who was in a restaurant with her husband at the time, said, "Champagne for everyone." James Stewart was a genuine war hero. The Oscar winner also rose to the rank of Major General in the U.S. Air Force. He was, after all, the congenial, affable, all-around good guy. However, off-screen, Stewart the person was known to have quite a temper, as well as a disdain for black people. In 1971, Stewart had a short-lived TV sitcom, The Jimmy Stewart Show. In one episode, Hal Williams was signed on as a police officer who had to confront Stewart's character. Hal Williams is best known for his characters in 227 and Sanford and Son, and has played police officers or authority figures in several of them. However, when Stewart learned of this casting, he was irate and demanded that Williams be replaced by a white actor. According to producer Hal Cantor, Stewart raged, "Blacks are bossing white people all over the country, and now we're going to have the same damn thing on primetime television? A black is going to be lecturing me with millions of people watching? No way. I get casting approval, and Williams is out." This was not exactly an isolated incident. Stewart was known to taunt and berate black actors on the set of his films, in particular hurling racial slurs at Woody Strode while filming The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Director John Ford at one point had to intervene. Outside of Hollywood, few knew of Stewart's explosive temper. His wife said it simply, "He has a rage that is as frightening as anything I've ever seen, but he controls it better than anyone I've ever known." In the case of The Jimmy Stewart Show, Hal Williams got the last laugh. The show received poor ratings and only lasted one season. Jimmy Stewart was also close friends with actor Henry Fonda, even though the two men had polar opposite political views.
There you go, thinking like a Republican again.
Those differences actually led to a fistfight between the two. Afterwards, they both vowed never to talk politics again. Between themselves, that is. They kept that promise and remained friends for 50 years. If you're too young to remember Walter Brennan, well, he was a highly regarded actor with a career spanning 6 decades, from the 1920s through the 70s. To date, he is the only actor to win 3 Oscars as Best Supporting Actor. On television, he is best known for The Real McCoys and The Guns of Will Sonnett.
And I'm better than both of them. No brag, just fact.
He was also considered by many to be the most evil man in Hollywood. Brennan was an outspoken racist who made no attempt to hide his views. In his biography, he was convinced that the anti-war and civil rights movement in the 1960s were being run by overseas communists, and said as much in his interviews. He told reporters that he believed the civil rights movement was the result of perfectly content Negroes being stirred up by a handful of troublemakers with an anti-American agenda. He also stated that the Watts riots could have been stopped by a machine gun. A member of the ultra-conservative John Birch Society, Brennan gave speeches on their behalf and even recorded a hate album called Negroes and the Civil Rights. One of the most well-known stories about Walter Brennan is how visibly happy he was when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in 1968. He was on the set of The Guns of Will Sonnett, and reports were he cackled with delight and literally danced a jig on the set when the news was announced, much to the consternation of those in attendance. Like many of his fellow John Birchers, Brennan fully expected a Soviet insurrection. He also had a bunker on his Los Angeles estate fully outfitted with firearms and survival supplies awaiting the Russian invasion. It didn't happen, and he died in 1974 of emphysema. John Wayne was the quintessential cowboy figure for decades in movie westerns. The rugged 6'5" Oscar winner was considered a cinematic icon representing all that was good and mighty about the American cowboy. But disturbing revelations about Wayne from a 1971 interview threatened to derail his career, or so you might have thought. The interview, in Playboy magazine and reprinted in several other publications, featured Wayne admitted he was a white supremacist. Wayne said, "I believe in white supremacy until the blacks are educated to a point of responsibility. I don't believe in giving authority or positions of leadership to irresponsible people." Wayne, who on many occasions on and off screen has referred to Native Americans as savages, also stated his belief that stealing land from them was justified. His admissions surprised few in the industry, but also barely registered with his fans.
Well, you know, she doesn't like John Wayne.
My Sarah? I brought her up better than that.
John Wayne continued to be highly regarded, and his comments were either ignored or condoned. At the Oscars ceremony in 1973, Marlon Brando refused to accept his award for Best Actor in The Godfather, citing the ongoing mistreatment of Native Americans. In his place, Sachim Littlefeather read a statement explaining this.
Miss Sachim Littlefeather.
Sachim Littlefeather is an Apache Native who is president of the National Native American Affirmative Image Committee. As she nervously took the podium, she said that she was representing Marlon Brando this evening, who had asked her to tell everyone, in a very long speech she couldn't share because of time, but would be glad to share with the press afterwards, that he very regretfully could not accept this very generous award. She went on to say that the reasons for this being the treatments of the American Indians today by the film industry and on television and in movie reruns, and also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee. She said, "I beg at this time that I have not intruded upon this evening, and that we will in the future, our hearts and our understandings will meet with love and generosity." Thank you on behalf of Marlon Brando. After Littlefeather's speech, there was a mixture of boos and applause from the stunned audience. But John Wayne, who was in attendance, was livid. Littlefeather said John Wayne, who is famous for killing Native Americans on film, was so angry at her remarks that he wanted to drag her away off stage. She said he had to be restrained by 6 security men. This was no surprise given Wayne's view on Native Americans and women in general.
Oh, well, I didn't say anything against women. All I said was that I thought they had a right to work any place they wanted to, as long as they had dinner on the table when I got home.
John Wayne lived in Orange County, California until his death in 1979. That year, the Orange County Airport was renamed in his honor, calling the actor a man of humility, of honesty, and a hero of the American West who was a symbol to the world of the traditional American values. 40 years later, a push was on to rename the airport after quotes from his infamous Playboy interview was revisited. His son Ethan denied that his father was a racist. Ethan said, "I know that term is casually tossed around these days, but I take it very seriously. I also understand how we got to this point." Many families remember sitting around the television set watching the wonderful world of Disney. And even if you weren't around during his lifetime, it's impossible to not be aware of how far-reaching the world of Disney really is. Between Disney and Time Warner, they seem to have a stake in nearly every entertainment venture imaginable. From Disney movies to theme parks, Disney owns it, including NBC and Telemundo. This has come a long way since October 16, 1923, when Walt Disney and his brother Roy co-founded the Disney Brothers cartoon studio in Hollywood. But what was it like to actually work for Disney? And did he really have a problem with blacks or Jews? There have been a lot of conflicting testimony over the years from those who worked for Uncle Walt, as he liked to be called. Most employees swear that he was not racist or anti-Semitic, while others, especially those closest to him, state the opposite. Mexican-born Bill Melendez is an animator, best known for his work on the Peanuts cartoons, but while he was in his 20s, he was part of the Disney assembly line for 6 years and knew Uncle Walt quite well.
He was as bigoted a person as I've ever encountered, especially in a position of power. He made no bones about not liking this or that type of people. He especially hated, he didn't like Jews, especially New York ones.
Disney also apparently had a problem with female employees. Although there were never any allegations of inappropriateness with the women on the staff, he nonetheless delegated them to the most menial roles in the company. Writer Joan Scott, who has written for shows such as Lassie, Have Gun Will Travel, and The Waltons, also wrote an episode for The Magical World of Disney in 1961. She describes a conversation with one of his top executives.
We were on our way to lunch at the commissary, and Disney's right-hand man came rushing out the door and said, "Wait a minute." And he said, "Joan, I have a question from Walt. And he just wants to know what your background is." And I knew, I don't know if it's instinctively just common sense, that he didn't want to know if I was English or French. So I said, "I'm really American hash. I'm some English, some Czech, some German, and I'm an eighth Jewish." And you could see this man's face just change expression.
Disney also personally hosted Nazi filmmaker Leni Riefenstahl when she came to promote her film Olympia in 1938. This was only a month after the infamous Nazi assault on Jews known as Kristallnacht. Disney gave Hitler's favorite filmmaker a grand tour of the studio, and Riefenstahl even commented that it was gratifying to learn how thoroughly proper Americans distanced themselves from the smear campaign of the Jews. Even though Walt Disney's attitude was not considered unusual for that era, insiders state that the N-word was a frequent part of his vocabulary. His critics also point to racist imagery used in his films, such as the crows from Dumbo and the film Song of the South. Disney eventually hired his first African-American animator in 1957, Floyd Norman. But prior to that, even the perception that you were black presented a problem.
Somebody hired, of course, the front office or, whoever was hiring, I forget, hired this very dark, I mean, he was blue-black Hindu, very dark. And so Walt was, walking along the hallway up to his room and must have made a take like you can't believe it. When he saw this guy, God, he did a take. And went up to his office, I guess, and he said, what's that Negro doing around here? "Oh, no, well, he's not a Negro, he's a Hindu." He said, "Well, he's pretty dark. Get rid of him."
In any television or movie production, there are dozens of individuals that work in front of the camera and behind the scenes to make it happen. Even if the primary person is racist or has something else about them that would be objectionable, it would probably be fair to assume that this attitude is not shared by everyone on the production. Still, it sometimes makes it tough to enjoy a performance from someone that we once admired when we find out something about them that we probably would rather have not known. If you like this video, please check out some of the others I have on my channel, and also subscribe where you'll be notified whenever I post new content. Oh, and don't forget to hit the like button, and you're welcome to leave a comment anytime you so desire.